So good evening. It is now 1800 hours, and I'm going to call this special council meeting 2026-07 to order. We're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. So all rise. Deputy Mayor, you'll lead us in the pledge.
Please face the flag. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Hoorah. Okay, item number one, public hearing. Oh, as you were. Roll call. Madam Leffler.
Mayor Medina,
Present?
Deputy Mayor Jaffe,
Present.
Councilman Johnson,
Present.
Councilman Hammer,
Present.
Councilman Langevin, Mr. Morton,
Present.
Ms. Smith.
Present.
Thank you, ma'am. Item number one, public hearing. Madam Smith.
Resolution 2026-03, a resolution of the City of Palm Bay, Brevard County, Florida, electing to timely preserve the use of the uniform method of collecting non-ad valorem assessments levying part of the City of Palm Bay for the fiscal year 2026 through 2027, beginning October 1st, 2026, stating a need for such levy, providing for the timely mailing of this resolution as provided by general law, providing for an effective date.
Thank you, ma'am. I'm going to open up the public hearing and defer to Mr. Morton.
Thank you. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, City Council. I'm going to run through a 5 or 6 minute presentation and sort of an explanation of where we're at. I'm then going to ask Deputy City Manager Jason DiLorenzo to come up and fill in some more gaps. So essentially what we're requesting tonight is that the City Council conduct this preliminary public hearing, which is a statutory requirement to preserve options, and then consider approval of the attached resolution, which in turn must be shared timely with the local tax collector, the property appraiser, and state officials. This resolution does not require, and it does not authorize, the imposition of any special assessment. Rather, it gives timely statutory notice the city might, for the next fiscal year, consider such funding, that it will be the subject of further council direction, and another public hearing with advance, individually mailed notices to all affected property owners as further required by statute. More detailed council direction and refined consideration of how and what items to fund in terms of budgeting for capital and or essential services within the city for the next fiscal year 26-27. That would all be pending discussion. Adoption of the resolution does not commit the City Council to employ the use of this non-ad valorem funding source, but again, merely serves as an advance notice to keep the option open to do so. The proposed special assessment is for the identified area, and it was developed through a systematic approach to improve fire services delivery in that geographic area by providing expanded level of service. Advantages of the special assessment include the following: protecting property values, reducing insurance costs, enhanced risk reduction through an enhanced level of service. This ad and map ran for 4 consecutive weeks, the last of which just ran this last Thursday in the paper of record. The intent behind this is what is called a graduated assessment. That is our goal walking into this, and the discussions with our consultant at this point, with the idea being that a vacant property would pay a very low rate, an existing home would also pay at a very low tier, and new residential structures and new commercial properties brought online would be paying that enhanced level of service rate at the full force. One of the reasons that the ad valorem assessment is being considered is impact fees are not able to be capitally bonded against, but we potentially could bond against projected revenues of an assessment district. Now, to answer the question, how come the impact fees aren't enough? So I'm going to just do a quick assumption real here based off real data that we have from operations that we're doing. So we know more or less that the recent fire station cost us $9 million to build at an interest rate of 4.2 to 4.3%, and adjust that $19 million over a 30 or 40-year note, excluding land, excluding a startup cost for equipment. We're talking just the building, no equipment. We're looking at $22 to $25 million to bring a fire station online. Again, if we were to rely simply on impact fees, The total amount of impact fees we believe will be generated over approximately 10,000 lots is only $8.5 million, not even enough to build a singular fire station. And again, that collection period could run 20, 30, or 40 years, so we wouldn't even have the capital to build that fire station. This is important because the temporary fire station that we just placed out in this area already has to be moved in about 15 months. So we're already on a time clock to begin the planning and construction of a permanent fire station in this area to provide service. We do not have a backup home yet for the temporary fire station. A lot of things you'll be hearing really quick, and I'm going to close with this, so just take a few moments. In our budget analysis this year, and I know I've discussed this with staff, I've sent you guys an analysis as well. We're going to look at our budget alignment around 5 solid pillars of discipline. One is the fiscal discipline, one is infrastructure planning, one is the priority put on public safety, one is the priority of economic momentum, and one is organizational reform. These are the 5 core areas that you and the community have asked us to look. So for the example, from our philosophy, why are we here? Why did we consider this assessment? We believe that this proposed assessment would fundamentally be about fiscal discipline, about infrastructure planning, and protecting public safety as Palm Bay continues to grow. First, from the fiscal discipline standpoint, growth-related service demands cannot continue to be absorbed into the general fund and unintentionally shifted onto long-time homeowners. A dedicated fire assessment could create this level of transparency financially and ensure that fire protection costs are allocated and based on actual service demand. That protects existing residents from subsidizing new development and provides enhancements for this, again, this geographic area for the cost of service being paid.
Mr. Morton,
Yes.
can you please repeat that last statement? About current residents?
The idea of this is to protect current residents from subsidizing new development and provides enhanced levels of infrastructure for those already existing in this geographic zone.
Thank you. Carry on.
Second, this is about infrastructure planning. Fire rescue is a core public safety infrastructure pillar. We keep talking about that. We've seen significant increases in call volumes, and as development patterns evolve, we must plan for additional staffing, additional apparatus, additional future station locations, and equipment. Again, properly structured, as we're hoping to do here with this assessment, it gives us predictable, sustainable funding to align the required service capacity with the growth that's incoming, rather than just trying to react as response times degrade and lives and property are placed at greater risk. Third, public safety remains a priority. Our objective is not only to maintain, but I know we're working to enhance and improve response times citywide. This level of reliable funding in this enhancement area will allow us to deploy resources quicker, more strategically, and ensure that both the established neighborhoods, the established residents, and the new communities receive a high level of service. Again, with this area, we're going to be establishing an enhanced level of service. Fourth, we believe responsible funding of the fire service supports economic momentum. Businesses considering relocation, expansion, they primarily will evaluate emergency response capability and ISO rating as a factor on where to decide to locate. And again, a well-funded, well-planned fire system enhance our competitiveness while ensuring growth does not outpace public safety infrastructure. And lastly, this represents the last thing we've been asked to deliver, which is organizational reform. And again, it is our belief, going through the options we have in front of us, that moving this to a more direct cost of service model modernizes how we fund this essential service, aligns the costs with the new demand, and will reduce structural pressure across our already strained general fund. And with that, I would ask Jason to come up and fill in a couple gaps, and then, of course, answer any questions you have now or at the close of the public hearing. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Sorry for my voice. Jason DiLorenzo, Deputy City Manager. As you know, we have taken a different approach to new development that has been utilized in the past. We're focused as best we can with the tools we have to ensure that growth is, in fact, paying for itself. And this initiative fits that goal. Several months ago, we met with the major landowners around the St. John's Heritage Parkway interchange and told them as a group that they needed to solve for concurrency issues like roads, public facilities, schools, parks, and public safety. Like most things that are new and different, there was a pushback in that meeting. Subsequent meetings provided some solutions, but the fire service remained a concern since we are currently nearly at capacity with temporary Station 9 for the development we already have in that area. We settled on this process, the non-ad valorem assessment. A non-ad valorem implies that it will not be adjusted by the value of the property. It's a flat fee based on use that can get adjusted over time as needed. The annual assessment will be uniform in collection method based on availability of the fire service for the type of use, like unimproved, agricultural, residential, or commercial. To determine the type of use and corresponding fee, a study is completed. This study considers the needs of the system, like facilities, apparatus, equipment, and personnel, to serve the anticipated growth. If you approve this tonight, we have engaged a consultant to move quickly to the next step. Speed is a necessity by statute. To start collecting the fee this year, we must have the entire process completed by September the 1st. As Mr. Morton mentioned, the process did not start today. A map of the proposed area was created by looking at each parcel in the south portion of the city. Nearly all the parcels are unimproved. After developing the map, we discussed the possibility of the assessment area with the property owners around the south interchange that have imminent development. There are several more steps to follow. The study is next, followed by a public hearing to discuss the findings and amount of a proposed assessment, which we anticipate in early July. Then each landowner at the parcel level is mailed a ballot, which includes the details of the assessment, and then there is a second hearing for a final vote. I want to reiterate what Mr. Morton said. Today's vote will not create an assessment. It will only notify the property appraiser and the tax collector that we are exploring the possibility. And now myself and Chief Stover and potentially Ms. Smith will attempt to answer any questions that you may have.
All right, council, any questions?
Mayor.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. DiLorenzo. Question is, how much is the cost of the study?
Roughly $56,000.
Yeah, I was going to say 60, around 60. Yeah.
What budget is being used to pay for it?
Fire impact fees.
Okay. Those are all the questions I had.
Thank you. Any additional questions, council? Seeing none, carry on. I'm going to move this to discussions from our audience. Anyone in the audience wish to speak for or against this item? By a show of hands, Master Chief, please step forward. And Butch, you're next, sir.
Bill Batten, 586 Ocean Spray Street, Southwest. First, I'd like to thank the staff for answering a lot of the questions that I presented. It came out across that way. I appreciate that. But that does not mean I'm not going to address it to my council. I have 12 questions I'd like answered if I get the opportunity. One, will this set the precedence for the rest of the city to happen in the future? We don't want to end up like West Melbourne where they pay their taxes, then have a fire charge on top. Number two, how many years before it is fully built out? Will the general fund be funding that until we reach that criteria? And who pays during that time? Will general funds be used to offset the total cost? Three, will this be in perpetuity? Will this process run on forever and ever and ever? Will they ever get a break from taxes? Four, what is the expected cost? You gave me that down in your answers, but we still don't know what it's going to be on how you're going to get there. Number five, will this eventually spill over to the police, utilities, public works, roads, et cetera, because, oh, we can't seem to fund it, let's just have an ad valorem bill added to our taxes. Six, aren't you facing the same problem with the St. John's Heritage Parkway North? Seven, how will this interact with the housing coming in at Sunterra, because we might be having joint duty assignment with them? 9, it turns into a us versus them or old versus new, because they're getting benefits that we're not, or they're not getting benefits we are. 10, developers asking for the same deal. Oh, well, you're providing that there. How about developers saying, well, you give us the same deal, and that's what we'll help out, right? 11, why did the city annex this land knowing they did not have the mechanisms to fund police and fire? 12, how did you decide what parcel IDs would be included in the study? But more importantly, how did you decide what parcels would not be included when they're in the same general area? Last questions. If you now don't know the answers to these questions, then you probably shouldn't be pushing it forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? Carry on. Anyone else wish to speak for or against this item? Seeing none, Mr. Morton?
I'll address as many as I can. We may have to call some other people in, but in terms of setting a precedence for the city of Palm Bay is very unique. That's the reason we have this vote procedure. It's unique to Palm Bay. So if it was something were eventually, and I can't speculate on the future, to go out citywide, anybody impacted would have to vote. So with the will of the voters, I doubt that would ever pass, but that's just a guess. So that might be self-regulating, but in all honesty, yeah, who knows what happens down the road. I can't say it would or wouldn't be a mechanism that staff would propose anyway. But right now, we're talking about a very limited geographic area. Years before fully built out in general fund, it's already being funded by the general fund now. That's how the temporary station's out there. That's how we respond for calls for service. And quite frankly, it's unsustainable. We don't have the money right now to relocate that temporary fire, or a place to relocate it at the moment. We have no property to relocate it to. So we thought time was of the essence. We already are using general funds to pay to serve this area. So yes, going forward, can the property be adjusted? Yes, it can be adjusted up, it can be adjusted down, or it can be eliminated. That will be based, the study will tell us for the length of service, where we wind up when the area is fully built out and you're receiving the full ad valorem weight. That's part of the challenge right now, is we're expected to provide service before day one. The minute lots are platted and the first stick of timber drops, you already are getting calls for police and fire services. Everyone knows you don't even have to have houses out there yet. It just begins that demand. Construction site problems, thefts, fights, fires, things happening. So the level of service calls generally start immediately when an area looks to be developed. And so that's how we're kind of looking at that, is we've got this 3-year window, hopefully, as this moves forward, to begin to understand the true pace of what we call uptake. Again, could be 30 or 40 years till that area is fully built it out. But we need to start planning ahead of time based off those assessments to fund these infrastructure pieces. Again, I'm speaking from staff's perspective. In terms of St. John Heritage Parkway, I think we've been clear. I know I've been clear in meetings. I'm looking at a very similar model of potentially a toll road. I don't know how we're going to get the $2 billion or $1 billion to build that anyway. That's a separate conversation for a separate day. I don't know who's got the funding when the county itself, I believe, according to the last SCTPO report, is $1.5 billion or $2 billion short for infrastructure. So we're getting creative on how we fund. Osceola's done it, Hammock's done it. Is that a toll throughway eventually for the new portion of St. John's? Those conversations I will probably bring up in the future in all candor. I wasn't here when we annexed. I can't speak to the vision, although I know there are some great things happening commercially and industrially down in that zone that will benefit the entire city in the near future. So I think that there was vision there in that move. And then why were these parcel IDs selected? We tried to grab, in a very short time frame that we had, the most logical regional nexus. And there's another piece to the way the map was designed. By statute, you cannot add properties after the map has been published in the legal description, but we can remove properties. So part of this now is the ongoing discussion with the affected property owners, ones that we didn't contact. We did not contact every single landowner. We did as much contact as we could. The process now takes several months. We can have those conversations, and there is an opportunity, if we can draw that rational nexus, to remove properties from the potential annexation or assessment area. And I think potentially that was it. Probably missed one.
Areas outside of the city like Sunterra. Ready to cover that? Or you have it?
Sure, please.
We anticipate that there are several areas outside of the city that are going through the county process. And as part of a pre-annexation agreement, we would require them to join the assessment, and then that'll be your decision when it comes to the annexation itself.
Thank you.
And there's, as we're all aware, there is, I don't know where it's going, but there is a bill in the legislature now that we would no longer be able to require annexation for the provision of utility services, but we still would be able to have a pre-annexation agreement if they chose to annex for other municipal services. So that's going to change that landscape too, and we don't know to which degree.
Okay, thank you.
And Mayor, if I could just have just a minute's grace.
Yes, sir.
A lot of people helped us to get to this point. I would just take a minute to thank them, please. It was really collaborative. Lots of departments were involved, but particular Chief Stover, Deputy Chief Rattray, Kim Hagler, Chandra Powell, Ms. Smith and her team, and Joe Hale, who contributed incredible technical assistance to the project to this point. So
Thank you. Thank you for recognizing that. And part of that, too, was this council. This council gave you guys specific information, and you took the ball and ran with it. This is a solution not to bear the growth on our current citizens. So, council, I'm going to close this is anyone else wish to speak for or against this item? Seeing none, I'm closing the public hearing and asking for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2026-03.
Second.
Sorry.
I got a motion by Deputy Mayor Jaffe, seconded by Mayor Medina. All in favor, any discussion?
No, Mayor.
Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 4-0. Thank you. We're now on item number 1 of business, and yield to our city attorney, Madam Smith.
Yes, Mayor, you have before you a proposed settlement of the federal litigation in the matter of Langevin versus the City of Palm Bay. This litigation was involving the Resolution 2025-41 that censored Councilman Langevin for conduct unbecoming an elected council member and for improperly using the City of Palm Bay letterhead. Pursuant to that censure, council expressed disapproval and provided specific criteria, including a restriction on his placing items on the agenda for consideration without seeking the consensus of the majority of council, limiting his council and committee reports, removing him from all future appointments for city boards or committees. In response to the resolution, Councilman Langevin filed a federal lawsuit alleging that the city was retaliating against him based upon his First Amendment expressions. There was an temporary injunction hearing on December 3rd. Subsequent to that temporary injunction hearing, council did vote to amend the resolution. And in that amendment, council sunsetted the provisions related to consensus and the restriction on speaking on committee and council reports. Those provisions, too, were enjoined by the court. Subsequent to that, council did amend its council policies and procedures. That required all council members to seek consensus before placing an item on the agenda. So at this point, what you had is that council expresses disapproval, removed them for all boards, which are things that the judge did not find to be in error, had made all members subject to the consensus and allowed them to speak. So for council provision, and even for the plaintiff, a lot of the substantive issues were moot. But legally, the case still was viable because the only remaining issue really was attorney's fees, the entitlement to attorney's fees. So it became discussions, do we really want to move forward and continue both sides paying attorney's fees, cost and expense, just to determine attorney's fees? Because substantively, all the other issues had essentially resolved themselves. So the settlement you have before you is just that, a settlement for the attorney's fees. The amount will go to the plaintiff's attorney's fees. None of the money goes to Councilman Langevin. There's a release from any and all liability. Neither party admits wrongdoing. The case has already now, the parties have filed a notice of this settlement pending, contingent upon council approval. The court date was removed. The case was dismissed without prejudice. So if this settlement is approved upon payment, there will be dismissal with prejudice and a final judgment closing the case.
Any questions, council? Seeing none, I'm going to ask anyone in the audience wish to speak on this item? Okay, in order, did you raise your hand as well? So I got one, Mr. Batten, you were first, Butch, you're second, you're third, sir. Okay, Mr. Batten? And then you're fourth. Sir, you're number 4. After this gentleman. Carry on.
Bill Batten, 586 Ocean Spray Street Southwest. First question is, on the procedure of this one, when was this added to the agenda for tonight? I thought because I went back and looked at the last council meetings and nothing was presented under legal or clerk or anybody else to have this item added to the agenda. So how did it appear on a special council meeting agenda? That's my first question, because I thought the precedents had been set that it had to be established during a meeting what was going to appear on an agenda. This is strictly by how it appears, might not be the real case, but it's almost like, well, we don't want the public to see what we're doing, so we're going to do it in an empty room so they can see how we conduct business in the city of Palm Bay. You didn't even follow your own guidelines. That's number one. Number two, what was the total cost to the city? We understand what was paid to the attorney fees, but what was the total cost to the city? That's what I'm really interested in. All right. That being said, I'm glad this one's going behind us. Let's move on forward, people. Let's keep Palm Bay a good place to live. Thank you.
Thank you.
Which will ran 219 Trenton Avenue. I'm glad it's over too. My question is, you mentioned the split between the attorney fees and some money for the councilman. How much goes where? Or did I misunderstand what they said?
Carry on, keep.
That's all I got.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sir, you're number 3.
Parker Allen, 198 Ninth Street. This is, I guess we can assume that this is like another $55,000 for our internal counsel, so we're talking about over $100,000 to the taxpayers. So I don't know when staff members get their annual compensation reviews, but when they walk away from that, maybe feeling like it doesn't match their work output from last year, or maybe it didn't even cover the 3% inflation we saw, we can see that there's plenty of money for litigation here. And I'd really like to know, who provided the legal guidance that said that a judge would definitely find in favor of the plaintiff and that we would be forced to pay those attorneys' fees. I'd like to know what that invoice looked like, how many hours were being billed, what was the rate, how does that compare to our internal and hired attorneys? It just sounds like an eye-watering price tag. I know a lot of your constituents don't even take home that much in a year. It seems outrageous. It feels like a form of self-dealing. We have the city council suing the city council. What's to stop this from happening in another month? We just keep doing this, repeating this, $100,000 here, $100,000 there. It feels outrageous. Yeah, that's about all I got. Very disappointing.
Thank you.
Michael Brietti, 742 Cornelia Avenue. To Mr. Batten's point, I myself didn't learn of this hearing, and I had to go to social media to find this. And my take on this whole matter is this $55,000, get out while you can. Because if you keep running up the hours, this is going to just keep rolling and rolling and rolling. And Sabatini's just going to take you to the bank. Get out now while the getting's good. Because you never know how a judge is going to rule on that First Amendment going down the road. That's all I really have to say. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak for or against this item? Okay, seeing none, I'm asking for a motion.
Mayor, would it be possible for the city attorney to answer some of the questions that were asked?
Yes. Okay, Madam Smith,
Yes.
there's actually 4 questions there.
How did it get added to the special council meeting? It was added to the special council meeting. The settlement agreement our outside counsel and plaintiff's counsel negotiated the settlement. They did not anticipate that once they filed the notice of settlement, that the court would immediately dismiss the case and cancel the trial. Part of their settlement was that this was to be added to the next council meeting. The next council meeting the agenda had already gone out, and I would have to do an agenda revision. And I informed our council that doing an agenda revision to add this would not look well. I understood that everybody wanted this to happen as quickly as possible, especially since we had lost our trial date, but that I was not willing to do an agenda revision. So the next actual scheduled meeting we had was this meeting, which was the special council meeting. So I added it so it would be on an agenda during the regular, it wasn't a last-minute addition. The total cost to the city, I don't have the total numbers because we've had outside counsel for about a month, and I haven't been invoiced yet. As far as whether it's going to be $55,000, it shouldn't be $55,000 for a month, but I don't have the invoice because we've only had outside counsel for about a month, and I have no invoices at this time. Councilman Langevin does not get any part of the settlement. All of the funds are strictly for attorney fees and costs. Who is the outside counsel that we hire? Alec Russell is the outside counsel that helped us as far as to pursue the litigation and that will negotiate the settlement. He is in the Melbourne office of Gray Robinson. And those are all the questions.
Well, I think Parker said about this continuing in the future with attorney fees and carrying on.
Well, there would be nothing else from this lawsuit. Anything that's related to.
Ma'am, I think he was referring to another situation and, jeopardizing the city again. Is that correct, sir?
I'm not sure I understand.
Okay.
I feel like this just sets a precedent for continued action.
Yes, ma'am. On the precedence issue.
Well, there is no precedent any more than there are tort cases in which you all grant settlement authority because you believe that is in the best interest of the case, and there are other cases in which are torts and that you say that we should litigate the matter. Our decision to settle one case or litigate the other are based upon the facts and circumstances of the case and the risk that you all believe that is involved. This doesn't mandate that we have to do anything in any other case.
Okay, and Mr. Morton, can you weigh in on the total cost? Because I'm not sure if
I wouldn't have those numbers of this legal process, so that would come through the attorney's office.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, and just one other clarity for Mr. Batten as far as how an item goes on an agenda. At a council meeting previous to the next council meeting, we have to have council consensus to put an item on the agenda. Staff can always bring an item to the agenda. So council members didn't put this item on the agenda, staff did. So that's why it wasn't discussed for one reason at a previous meeting, and two, it wasn't ruled on yet either by the courts.
Okay, I need a motion.
So moved.
I got a motion by Councilman Hammer.
Second.
I got a second by Deputy Mayor Jaffe. Councilman Hammer?
Yeah, I'm not going to get into depth on how I feel about this situation. I will say this is probably one of the darkest things that's happened to me in a long time. With my decision to not be here right now, I was harassed. I was told that I was a bad person. I was told so many negative things to me because I knew we were going to be here right now. I really hope we can get back to work, move on, move forward. And I am not in support of the things that were said, but our Constitution allows us to say those things. And I knew that going into this, and I'm not going to go into it a lot more about how I feel about it. I just want this to be done and over with.
Councilman Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm sitting here, I'm annoyed with the whole situation. To answer Mr. Parker's question, we as council received the green light to move forward. I made calls and received, the green light in regards to moving forward with the letter to the governor. And then we all sat here and got, legal counsel to move forward, and that we had the green light to do so. So I've been on this council for 7.5 years, and make sure anything that I bring before the dais, before the council, I make sure all my ducks are in a row and make sure everything's fine-tuned, which is why we haven't had situations like these in the past. To your point also, Mr. Parker, there was a time 10 years ago where Mayor Capote was censored. And to your point, technically, he could have went about the same thing and done the same thing in regards to suing the city because his feelings were hurt or he felt a certain type of way. So I'm very frustrated. I was ready to take this to trial, but with judges, you never know with who you're dealing with. So I was very adamant about going to trial, and I still am very frustrated, but that's just how the justice system is. It depends on the day, depends on the dollar, and that's all I have for now, Mayor, so I'm good.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor.
Seconded. Yes,
Thank you,
sir.
Mayor. So Councilman Langevin calls himself a fiscal conservative, and, over the course of the last 12 months, he hosted a march in the city that cost the taxpayers an extreme amount of money with police overtime and supervision, staffing and resources. And ultimately, Councilman Langevin filed a lawsuit against his own city because he didn't like what council had did to him. Council ultimately sunsetted the censorship, and the lawsuit could have been dropped then. He decided not to. He decided to charge forward. And at that point in time, the city made a decision to retain outside counsel to prepare further for trial. And as the case progressed, conversations were had, we all kind of got to a point where it's like we just need to cut bait and focus on the business of the city. He's been a distraction long enough. I really hope and pray that he can, just come back and just focus on what the city needs to get done and focus on the taxpayers, focus on reducing taxes, infrastructure level of services, providing garbage, the things that a city council should do. I don't think a city council should focus on immigration. I don't think city council should focus on national issues. And, if we can all get in alignment on a vision of what a city council should actually do, I think we can actually get business done and continue and stop costing the taxpayer dollars. We made a decision based on the facts that were going on at the time, and things change. And to Councilman Johnson's point, you don't know what the courts are going to do. And so we made a decision, a business decision, and I'm going to stand behind it, and I'm going to approve the motion tonight. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And I just want to highlight a few things of what occurred. And thank you for bringing to our remembrance that I believe we had good, sound legal counsel. Legal counsel is just that. A great friend of mine who sat here as a former city attorney, Nick Samatellis, he said it's legal until, it's challenged and a judge rules otherwise, right? We're not going to go down this path. But Nick was a great man. We also have another great man in our audience today who's a former mayor. And I'll call you out, sir, because I have a lot of respect and admiration for you, Mayor Frank Filiberto, who was mayor when I first landed in Palm Bay. But, I'm a student of one of the greatest presidents of my lifetime is Ronald Reagan. And I have a few quotes. So please bear with me. And this is from Ronald Reagan. We must and will continue to unify continue our unified rejection of such elements of hate in our political life. Against bigotry, we must condemn those who seek to divide us. In all quarters, at all times, we must teach tolerance and denounce racism, anti-Semitism, and all ethnic and religious bigotry. You see, Ronald Reagan believed we have no place for haters in America and argued that unity was essential for the nation to remain mankind's best hope. I believed it when he said it. I believe it today. That is our hope. Listen, we had legal counsel. We addressed a situation that was causing division in our community, causing strife. I stood here. I tried calling a special council meeting, and no one was available but Councilman Hammer. And I stood here with hundreds upon hundreds of our citizens. And I listened to what they had to say. And in that, there was a possibility that we could have gotten a resolve. There was no forthcoming apology. And so what we did as a council was act to censor with that legal counsel. Now, I must admit that we made our decision based on that, and no one on this dais questioned that legal counsel. We moved forward, we had our sentiments, and we moved forward. Now, we are called to live at a higher standard for those who elected us. And I truly believe that as we move forward and we raise our right hand, we are called to serve all people and not disgrace any group. And with that being said, I'm going to end my comments with how I began them. We must and will continue our unified rejection of such elements of hate in our political life. We must condemn those who seek to divide us in all quarters, and at all times we must teach tolerance and denounce racism, anti-Semitism, and all ethnic religious bigotry. I will add, we had employees that were uncertain by those comments. And in the state of our city, as we continue to increase and gather those for us to have others and businesses invest in our community, this potentially could harm that. Mr. Morton, I'm going to ask you, and I'd love for you to comment. Have we had a situation where we may have lost a potential investment in our city?
Yes, we did.
Say again?
Yes, we did.
Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Just a publicly traded company that was looking to invest, and the temperature was too hot. They answered to their shareholders and do due diligence, and they decided to just waive off of their investment in Palm Bay for the time being.
And I know that sometimes we need to base our decisions on people that we represent and their employees that were at jeopardy or felt very uncomfortable with those comments that were said. So as council, we acted accordingly. We did what we had to do. And again, I have a motion now by Councilman Hammer, seconded by Deputy Mayor Jaffe. I'm calling the question. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 4-0. This meeting is now adjourned.